Okay, so get ready to dive into New LatinoLand, this book by Maria Arana. It's really something.
Yeah.
It seems like you're really interested in this whole idea of what it even means to be Latino in America today. And you know what? Arana, she goes there.
It's really interesting how she kind of starts right off the bat with this whole, like, even the label of this community is kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, even she recognizes that none of these terms really do justice to just how diverse this population is.
Right. It's like saying bird and just picturing like a robin.
Right.
You know, when they're like flamingos and ostriches and penguins. Like
Exactly.
It's huge category.
Huge.
Yeah. So how does she even deal with that?
Yeah.
I mean, does she just pick one term and stick with it, or?
You know, she uses them kind of interchangeably throughout the book.
Okay.
But she really emphasizes that, like, the biggest takeaway is that you can't think of LatinoLand as this monolith.
Yeah.
You know, it's people from all different national origins, races, religions, ideologies, like, you name it.
It's everything.
It's everything.
Yeah. And, you know, and get this. By 2060, people of Hispanic descent are projected to be almost 30% of the U.S. population.
Yeah.
And most of them will be U.S. born.
I know.
That just blows my mind. What does that even do to what we think of as American at that point?
It's a really good question. It's something that Arana really makes you think about, but I think to understand where this community is going, she really felt it was important to understand where they've come from.
Right.
And let me tell you, the history is not often talked about. It's really kind of shocking, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, even just the impact of Spanish colonization on indigenous people.
Huge.
I mean, you can't even, that's a heavy topic.
Absolutely.
And she does not shy away from it at all. The Great Dying, where you're talking about 90% of the native population just decimated.
Unbelievable.
It's just, it makes you stop and think about, you know, the human cost of all of that.
Absolutely. And she really connects those events to the waves of migration that have really kind of made up so much of Latino history in this country.
Right.
But this is where it gets interesting, I think, for you, is that either wave brings with it an entirely different story.
Of course.
So you have Cubans fleeing the revolution, you have Central Americans escaping civil wars, Dominicans navigating this really complex relationship with the U.S.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. If you've met one Latino person, you've met one Latino person.
That's exactly right.
It's so easy to lump everybody together, but these are all these different historical and political forces that shaped each individual's experience.
Right, and she talks about, amidst all of these struggles, these incredible stories of resilience that often, I think, get minimized. Did you know, for example, that Latinos have served in the U.S. military since the American Revolution?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. Jorge Farragut Mesquita, he fought in the Revolutionary War. And then you have Macario Garcia, World War II hero, awarded the Medal of Honor. These are just two examples that really challenge this narrative, that Latinos are newcomers to the American story.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder how much of their story has just been completely left out of the history books.
Right.
No wonder there's been this huge fight for accurate representation in things like the U.S. Census.
Oh, absolutely. And Arana, she goes into this whole struggle in depth. She highlights how undercounting and miscategorization have had real-world impact. Everything from political representation to, you know, getting access to important resources.
Right.
For Latinos, being counted accurately isn't just about numbers, it's about being seen and heard.
Absolutely. It's about having a voice.
Exactly.
And Arana doesn't just lay out all the problems. She digs into the economic realities, the education gaps, and even like the cultural erasure that so many Latinos face just trying to make it in America.
Yeah, she talks a lot about, you know, the entrepreneurial spirit that's often associated with Latinos. But she also, you know, brings to light some of the realities of the economic disparities that they face.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced picture.
One thing that really struck me was when she was talking about the Bracero program.
Right.
You know, where they brought in all these Mexican laborers during World War II, but often subjected them to just terrible conditions.
Absolutely.
You know, and exploitation. And it's just a stark reminder that achieving the American dream has not always been a level playing field for everybody.
And for many Latinos, the obstacles go beyond economics.
Yeah.
You know, Arana, she really kind of wants us to consider the social and cultural barriers that still exist today.
It's easy to think about these huge barriers, but one of the things that I really like about how Arana writes is she makes it really personal.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when she talks about education,
Right.
we all hear about this education gap that
Yeah.
affects so many Latinos.
And we hear these amazing stories of, Latinos in STEM fields.
Right.
Like Ellen Ochoa, astronaut.
Yeah.
Franklin Chang Diaz, astronaut. Incredible.
It's inspiring, yeah.
But she doesn't let us forget that these are these amazing exceptions, not the rule.
Right.
It's like, don't let these amazing stories overshadow these like systemic issues that are still happening.
Yeah, and it's not just individual achievements either,
Right.
Arana really digs into how Latino culture itself is kind of pushed aside.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in media and entertainment.
Totally.
Stereotypes everywhere.
Everywhere.
And they have real consequences.
It's that whole representation matters thing, but like on a deeper level.
Totally.
If you never see yourself reflected in the stories that you hear, it's hard to imagine yourself breaking those barriers.
And that's exactly it. I mean, Arana makes it clear that for Latino, representation isn't just about visibility, it's about having a voice.
Right.
It's about agency, like having a say in the narratives that end up defining who they are.
Right.
And for a community that's, so rich in culture, you got to talk about language.
Like, absolutely.
That's at the heart of it all.
That was such a fascinating point that she makes this whole idea of the power of language. It's your identity, your connection. It can be even an act of resistance, but it can also be a huge barrier.
Of course. It's that double-edged sword. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to preserve your heritage, but you're also trying to navigate a world where, English is often like the price of admission.
It reminded me of, I think it was Sandra Cisneros, the Chicana writer. She said that even after all of her success, she still felt this pressure to like lose her Spanish, to assimilate in order to be accepted by like mainstream publishers.
Wow.
And that just always stuck with me.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of what Arana is talking about. Even in creative fields, that tension between cultural identity and assimilation, it's real.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Arana doesn't want to just leave us with this sense of like despair or frustration.
There's not.
She really highlights the resilience,
the
activism that has always been a part of the Latino experience in this country.
This is a community that has historically fought for its rights, challenged injustice, demanded to be heard.
Absolutely.
And that spirit of activism is more important today than ever.
It's incredible.
It makes you realize that fighting for your place at the table is like woven into what it means to be Latino in America.
It is.
Who does she point to as examples?
Well, she talks about people like Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, who dedicated their lives to fighting for labor rights and social justice.
The work with the United Farm Workers, legendary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you have someone like Willie Velasquez, a true champion for Latino political empowerment.
Wow.
And these are just a few examples of leaders who just refuse to accept the status quo.
Wow.
And they really inspired others to fight for a more just and equitable society.
See, those are the stories that are so inspiring. And her point is that their legacy lives on today, right?
Absolutely.
In these movements that we're seeing.
She sees a direct line from those past struggles to what we see now. These contemporary efforts to increase Latino representation in media, politics, academia.
Everywhere.
You name it. And it's about building on those victories and continuing to push for progress.
It makes you think about all the challenges facing the next generation.
Right.
Growing up in a rapidly changing world.
Right.
New obstacles, but new opportunities too.
Yeah.
What does she say about them?
She sees a lot of hope.
Okay.
In the younger generation. They're more likely to be bilingual, bicultural world, more comfortable navigating different cultural spaces.
Yeah.
She believes that they're in this really unique position to become leaders in a society that's only becoming more and more diverse.
It's exciting to think about. It's like she's saying, okay, these are the realities, these are the systemic barriers, but don't you dare underestimate the power and the potential of this community, especially the next generation.
Exactly. She acknowledges the struggles, but she's also highlighting the resilience, the creativity, just this unwavering commitment to progress. That defines LatinoLand. And I think she challenges us all, no matter our background, to be a part of shaping a more inclusive and equitable future. And, speaking of shaping the future, one of the things that Arana really explores is how Latinos are using their voices and their culture to kind of reshape the cultural landscape itself.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the most obvious one to me is music.
Right.
You can't talk about American culture without talking about the impact of Latinos on music. And Arana spends a good chunk of the book really tracing that evolution.
It's true, and it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, right? I mean, from Richie Valens bursting onto the scene with La Bamba
Oh, yeah?
to, like, the global icon that is Carlos Santana.
And then the explosion of Latin
Yeah.
pop. Selena, Shakira, J-Lo. I mean, these artists aren't just popular. They're like cultural forces.
Totally. And here's the thing. She points out that it's not just about, like, individual stars.
Right.
Latin rhythms and melodies. They've seeped into everything, like rock, jazz, even country music.
It's everywhere.
It's become a part of the American sound.
It's that fusion that I love.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what chefs always say, the most interesting flavors come from combining different traditions.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You know?
I like that.
Yeah.
And you know, Arana argues that it's not about assimilation or one culture erasing another. It's this, like, really cool cross-cultural conversation
Right.
that ends up creating something totally new and vibrant.
Which is kind of the story of America,
Right?
right? A melting pot, but hopefully one where, you know, everybody's contributions are recognized and celebrated.
100%. And this whole tension that we've been talking about between, like, preserving tradition and embracing new possibilities,
Yes.
it's there in the literary world, too.
Oh, of course.
You know, she talks about the challenges that a lot of Latino writers have faced in trying to get their stories heard
Yeah.
by a wider audience.
It makes you think about Sandra Cisneros again.
Right.
And what she said about feeling that pressure to lose her Spanish, like in order to be considered mainstream, there's this expectation to kind of conform.
Absolutely. But then Arana highlights all of these authors who refuse to be silenced.
Yes.
You know, Sandra Cisneros, Julia Alvarez Junot Diaz. I mean, they broke down barriers and really opened the doors
For a whole new generation.
for a whole new generation of Latino writers.
And not just by telling their own stories, but by like expanding our understanding of what even counts as an American story.
That's exactly it. It's about the universality of those experiences, you know, the struggles, the triumphs. And Arana really drives home this point that to understand the Latino experience is to understand the American experience as a whole.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
You can't separate it. History, culture, politics, religion, the arts. Arana shows us how interwoven it all really is. This has been incredible. This deep dive into New LatinoLand. I feel like if I'm taking away one thing from this book, it's that this isn't just about one community, it's about the future of America.
I totally agree with you. And you know, she doesn't sugarcoat the challenges, but she leaves us with a sense of hope,
Yes.
of possibility.
Yes.
You know, this is a community that has always fought for its place at the table.
Always.
And those voices, they're only getting stronger.
It's a powerful reminder that the story of Latino identity in America,
Yeah.
it's still being written.
Yeah.
And we all have a role to play in shaping what that next chapter is going to look like.
Well said. And as you continue to explore this topic, just remember this deep dive. It's just the beginning.
Oh, it is?
You know?
Yeah.
There are so many more stories to discover, so much more to learn.
Keep diving deep.
Yeah.
You never know what incredible insights you might find.
Oh.